So a scale diagram represents a real object. Usually when you see a scale diagram in a book, it makes it smaller. Usually it's a reduction. Okay? So here's an example. You're drawing plans to build a doghouse. It has a scale factor of 1 to 10. What that means, the first number represents your actual drawing. 1 centimeter on your actual drawing is 10 centimeters in real life. So the first number is your drawing. The second number is your actual object. And when units aren't given, that's true for anything. 1 foot on your drawing is 10 feet in reality. If your drawing was 1 kilometer, it would represent 10 kilometers in reality. Okay? Of course, then you would probably want to use a different scale if it was that large. Okay? As I said before, and maybe I'll try and make this one bigger, you can see it on your you can see it a little bit better on excuse me, on your notes, but here we have a map. Okay? And on the map in the bottom corner there, they've got 20 kilometers listed and 10 miles listed. And so if you measured that distance with a ruler, and you can come in here, you can take a ruler if you use it. So on your paper, if you measure that, you will get 1.7 centimeters from here to here. That's what I measured it on. So just double check that. And then if you choose a point for Winnipeg and a point for Portage la Prairie, and draw a straight line between them and measure how long that is, what are some of the measurements that you get? 7.5. It really depends where you put your dot for Winnipeg and where you put your dot for Portage. So I could see answers of 7.5, 7 centimeters, but so let's put down that we measured it to be 7.5 centimeters. Part B, it says to describe the map scale in words. So if I was describing this in words, I would say every 1.7 centimeters on the map is 20 kilometers in reality. Now usually when you get a map, because I took this one from the internet, probably if it was drawn perfectly, it would be a nice number, like 1 centimeter or 2 centimeters is 20 kilometers, and 1 centimeter is 10 kilometers then. But since this has been photocopied and copied off of another place, then sometimes that scale gets a little mixed up. They try to make it nicer numbers. But in this case, our numbers aren't the greatest. Every 1.7 centimeters on the map is 20 kilometers in reality. So according to using the 7.5, how do we find out how many kilometers this is in reality? How do we set this up? Okay? If every 1.7 centimeters is 20 kilometers, what we could do is we could see, well, how many 1.7 centimeters is there in 7.5? So if I go 7.5 divided by 1.7, that tells me how many 1.7 centimeters are in 7.5. And I'll go to my calculator here. 7.5 divided by 1.7 gives me 4.41. And what does each one of those 1.7s represent? 20 kilometers. So if I take 4.41 now and multiply it by 20, we get 88 kilometers. Now, if you would Google how far it is from Portage-la Prairie to Winnipeg, you'd probably get a number like, I think it's around 70, 75 kilometers. Okay? Looking at our diagram, looking at where I measured from the center of Winnipeg to the center of Portage-la Prairie. But chances are, in reality, they would say, okay, Winnipeg starts there, Portage-la Prairie starts there. That might be the line. If we use that one, we would probably get less than 7 centimeters, and that could affect our answer. But if you wanted a general idea, this works pretty good. Because if it's really 75 kilometers and you got 88 kilometers, that's pretty close. Closer than, say, you thought, oh, I think Portage-la Prairie is 1,000 kilometers away. That would be a really bad interpretation of this map. Okay, so that's a map. Sometimes a scale is given like this. A map scale is 1 centimeter is 200 kilometers. Remember, whatever's listed first is the drawing. In this case, that's the map. And whatever's listed second is what the actual item is, what it is in reality. Calgary is roughly 1,400 kilometers from Winnipeg. How far would that be on the map? Well, every 200 kilometers on the map is 1 centimeter. So if we go 1,400 kilometers, how many 200 kilometers is that? So if we take 1,400 divided by 200, we get 7. So we would go 200 kilometers 7 times on the map. Does that make sense? So you've got, you got Winnipeg here, Calgary here, and you go 200 once, 200 twice, 203 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times. And each time you go 200 kilometers in reality, on the map, that's going to be 1 centimeter. So then you would go 7 times 1, well, that's not very hard math, and get 7 centimeters for the distance on the map. So it kind of makes sense that maps are not made with a scale of 1 centimeter equals 1 centimeter. Can you imagine? Here is your map from Winnipeg to Calgary, and you open it up. You have to spread it out because it's actually 1,400 kilometers long to read your map. Obviously, that wouldn't make a lot of sense. So maps have a huge scale reduction because here, 200 kilometers got reduced to 1 centimeter. On that same map, you measured from Winnipeg to Toronto, and it was 22 centimeters long. Well, what's our scale? Our scale is 1 centimeter is equal to 200 kilometers. So if you had 22 centimeters, what kind of math would you do to find out how long it is in actual kilometers? Should I do 22 plus 200, 22 divided by 200, 200 divided by 22, 22 times 200? What makes sense? 22 times, because each centimeter is 200, and if you have 22 centimeters, and now we're talking an actual distance, the actual distance is in kilometers, so it will be 4,400 kilometers. The distance from the North Pole to the moon is 382,500 kilometers. You want to draw this in the diagram below. So we're going to have to draw the moon. It has like a crater in here, doesn't it? There, oh, that is a beautiful, artistic-looking moon. I think that's the nicest moon I've seen. Okay? And then over here, we have to draw the Earth. Earth is a little bit bigger than the moon. And we have our North Pole right there. We could like draw oh, there we go. Oh, I should draw these in green, because this is land, right? Here's Australia a little bit of Asia showing. There we go. There's our planet. What do we want? We want the distance from the North Pole to the moon to be 382,500 kilometers. So I just drew my diagram. After drawing my diagram, I'm going to take a ruler and I'm going to measure how far it was from this point on my diagram to this point on my diagram. Okay? And I measured it to be 10 centimeters. If that's 10 centimeters, I need to come up with a scale. Well, you can start with your scale saying, well, I know that 10 centimeters has to be the same as 382,500 kilometers. Now, usually when we set up a scale, our scale is reduced to start with 1 centimeter. If 10 centimeters is this, what math needs to be done to go from here to here, and then also we'll have to do the same thing on this side? And we have to think about how scales work. If 10 centimeters is this, 1 centimeter would be what? Should you subtract 9? Should you divide by 10? What should be the math that you should do to get from 10 to 1? Because there's different ways to do that, right? I can get from 10 to 1 by subtracting 9. I can get from 10 to 1 by dividing by 10. What makes more sense in this situation? If 10 centimeters is 382,000, what would I have to do to find 1 centimeter? I'd have to divide by 10. So 1 centimeter dividing by 10 here as well, that just takes off 1 0. Excuse me. And you get that 1 centimeter is 38,250 kilometers. And that would be an appropriate scale for the diagram that we have. Describe in words. So we're going to have to write things out in full sentence. What does the following scale mean? 1 centimeter goes to 0.1 centimeters. Give a real-life example of something that might be drawn to this scale. Okay? So first of all, in a scale diagram, we have to know which one's the drawing and which one's the actual reality. If we have 1 centimeter equals 0.1 centimeters, you have to remember this listed first is always your drawing, and this is what it is in actual life. So what it means in words is 1 centimeter on your drawing represents 0.1 centimeters in reality. So I want you to think, now, does this mean that your drawing is smaller than the reality or bigger than the reality? If 1 centimeter on your drawing represents 0.1 centimeters in reality, is the drawing an enlargement or is the drawing a reduction? Okay? The drawing would be bigger, because if 1 centimeter on your drawing is actually in reality only 0.1 of a centimeter, in reality it's smaller. So your drawing has become an enlargement. What might something be that you would want to enlarge it if you were doing a drawing of it? Obviously not a map. Maps, you definitely want to be a reduction. So can you think of something that if you were going to want to draw it on a piece of paper, you would want it to be larger than it is in reality? Any ideas? Maybe an example would be if you had to draw an maybe you were drawing an insect in a biology textbook. Insects are small. This scale diagram makes them 10 times bigger. That might be something that you could be able to view better, especially if you were like labeling parts like the wing or the abdomen or whatever. Do you have to label all the parts of an insect once in middle school? Did you have to do that in science? So next up, we want to draw, using the rulers that you have, a scale diagram of your room. Your actual room is 4 meters by 2.5 meters. That seems pretty reasonable. You've 4 meters this way, 2.5 meters would be about like this. This is the size of your room. Maybe? Possibly. Seems like it could be a reasonable thing. Okay? Now, why would this be a bad shape to draw your room? That's a circle? Is that 4 meters by 2.5 meters? No. Okay? We need to come up with a scale so that it draws nicely on our piece of paper. So look at your ruler. How big could you draw on that space that you have? You could use centimeters. Good. Centimeters seems to be a smart thing to use because your ruler's in centimeters. What do you want to make 1 centimeter on your drawing equal to in reality? Right? If you made 1 centimeter on your drawing equal to 1 centimeter in reality, then you'd have to draw something 4 meters long. That's not going to fit on your paper. So we have to think of what kind of scale could we use so that we could draw a scale diagram of this idea. Any thoughts of what you could do? So sometimes with something like this, you start off with what you think is the easiest. Let's make 1 centimeter equal to 1 meter. If your room is 4 meters by 2.5 meters, what would you draw on your diagram? Well, 4 meters, you'd measure out 4 centimeters, because that would equal to 4 meters. And then you'd measure out 2.5 centimeters and draw your rectangle. Now, if you draw that rectangle, 4 meters, 2.5 centimeters, see how much space it takes up. Is it fill your page as much as you want it to? Or would you like to make it bigger? If you wanted to make it bigger, if you wanted to fill up more space, you could make 1 centimeter equal to half a meter. Then you would need 8 centimeters here. And 5 centimeters there to make the same scale diagram of your room. So it depends on how much space you have on the paper that you want, or how big you want to make your scale. Logan? Okay, I want you to try this one on your own. I want to see your best attempt at drawing an ant. Oh, and it's a spelling mistake in here. You've captured an ant and then it's a mosquito all of a sudden? No, it should stay an ant. So The ant measures 3 millimeters by 2 millimeters. What would be an appropriate scale that you could draw? And then I want you to attempt to draw it according to your scale. Once you're done your scale and drawing, you can show it to me, and then you can go get your textbook to work on the questions from there. I would say the easiest example that I saw that people came up with is they made 1 centimeter on their drawing equal to 1 millimeter in reality. Then if the ant is 3 millimeters by 2 millimeters, they drew a box that was 3 centimeters long here, 2 centimeters here, and they knew they had to draw their ant and fit that ant in there, right? Ants look like this. They even have tattoos that say like mom on them.
What?
All right. So we now know that Logan loves his ant. So this was one example. Now, that doesn't make it super big. So I saw another person choose this as their scale. They said they wanted to make it even bigger. 1 centimeter is 0.5 millimeters. That meant that they had to go 6 centimeters this way and 4 centimeters that way. Oh, check it out. Trying to fit this thing into that box.
What?
That's a big, thick ant.
It's a fuzzy ant, but it's pretty blurry. I now enlarged it to fit into this 6 centimeter by 4 centimeter using this new scale.